Thank you very much. Today I thought I'd lead you on a little journey about our two companies, Balco and Bowman's Intermodal. Why we started a business. In the early 80s we actually started an economic development board at Balaclava, and we just couldn't get anyone to come and do business there. So at one of the meetings I said, hands up who wants to start a business. And we actually started Balco with 4 families. But the guys that were involved in it were a machinery salesman, a livestock salesman, a primary school headmaster, and myself as a farmer. And at that stage, I was 40 when I started, so you're never too old to start another business from what you're doing now. The company at that eventually over the next few years, 15% of the shares were owned by our staff, and 55% by the original directors, and 30% by friends when we needed some help. One of our biggest drivers was that our town was dying in a lot of respects, and we were quite worried about the community and about jobs, and so that was one of the real drivers also for that. But we also wanted to see how we could value add export farming goods, and that's where we started. I should say Balco is the Balaclava company. That's where we act, quite corny really. But us doing our business has also helped other businesses to come to our community, because you're like-minded and you can actually talk together at quite a good level. But this year we turn over $100 million. 80 million of that is hay and 20 million is through our rail. Now, when you talk about transformation, there are things that don't go right as well. We tried a lot of things. We tried a lot of different things, and some we got wrong and some actually worked. Some of them were to do with wrong timing, but some of them were also a lack of our own knowledge. We had hay plants in Victoria. I get the story with every one of these. Victoria, got dry, the freight went up, we couldn't make it work. Queensland, our Japanese clients actually asked us to move to Queensland for alfalfa. That didn't work. South Africa, we sent that press over there. We had a association with some guys at Uppington, and we were selling alfalfa from there to the Middle East, and eventually they compressed it in South Africa and we're selling it around South Africa, so we're out of that. But we still are in Western Australia and South Australia. We also tried corporate farming in Western Australia. We did 4,500 hectares of like oat farming over there, and found it easy to actually deal with the farmers. We thought we had to do that to get the business going. We had a computer sales and internet providing shop in Balaclava. Olive oil, we tried to have Compass Gold olive oil. Vitamin water, we tried to sell vitamin water for a short time. Actually, I sent my daughter overseas, and on her way back, stopping in New York to a trade fair and bring back 20 products that we thought we could sell in South Australia. Cotton packing and exporting. We used to get cotton seed from Lake Tandale, put it in 30-kilo bags, send it to Japan until they changed their seed to Pima, black seed, and that didn't then work. And we also did grain storage and packing. We sold that business in 2008. We got into a little bit of strife with the dollar, and we actually started that, and the model was not workable. CBH used to pack people's grain and then follow the marketplace and try and take the market away. We were just going to store and pack, and we did anywhere from 40 to 150,000 tonne. 150,000 tonne we made money, 40,000 tonne we didn't. So AMG, they've had a name change, bought us out. We have now 3 hay plants, 2 in South Australia and 1 in Western Australia, and this year we'll do 175,000 tonne. Our 5-year plan is for us to do 250,000 tonne, and I think that is being a little bit conservative, but that's what we're doing. We now have these hay plants as suggested in Western Australia, South Australia, but we're actually very interested in creating some other hay exporting facilities, and I think this is where South Australia is quite ripe for this. There's a lot of opportunities when you think of fodder. It's another alternative for farmers, and it really does help, especially in frost-prone areas, to actually have another alternate crop. So we're actually aiming to expand in South Australia. We've had a look around Victoria, we've had a look around a couple other spots, but South Australia is the spot. We also have 600 hectares of industrial land at Bowman's, which, we've got a couple of guys there, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. Balco itself started the Chinese market 7 years ago. One of the guys in the department in town told us that they needed hay over there, so we actually employed him to start that market for us. And Balco now does 35% of the hay market into China. We now also have a Chinese investor, Mr. Hu. He's certainly a good businessman, and he actually is part of the guys that we actually market through in China, so he's a very handy sort of guy. And we needed his money at that time. Other markets are opening up. We're now sending hay into Indonesia for the first time, Vietnam or Laos. I think even India might eventually buy our hay. There's a guy over there from Australia now that's selling a mini dairy in a 20-foot container, and you've got to have a certain amount of cows in India, and he sells these things, but he also sells a nutrition value, but it'll be slow, but it will get going, and India could be a good market. Also, the Middle East is a good market. They're running out of water over there, and they buy quite a bit of hay in the northern hemisphere, but they are looking at the southern hemisphere as an alternate supply. I think there's a great way forward with fodder now that we can actually add value to that product. When we first started, even in Japan in the early 90s, they would come and pick hay up on a push bike. It was very small dairies. But now we're actually selling to dairies in China that have got 150, 200,000 cows. So they prescription feed their stock. So for us to actually put barley or anything in this hay at a prescribed amount, I think is the next thing that we possibly will be doing. Bowman's intermodal. I actually want to go on to Bowman's intermodal because it all ties in. Balco's got a growth factor, and so has Bowman's intermodal. As you can see, for people that don't know, Bowman's is about 100 kilometres away from Adelaide, and we established this site because of the rail siding there, and we actually moved their hay plant from Clare to Bowman's in 2000. We established Balco Grain Services, as I was talking about just a while ago, and in 2003 we established 10,000 square metres of hard stand so we could service a train. I had there the government help, but they helped later on. I'll talk about that. In 2008, the government did help for us to double that hard stand. And that's one thing I reckon that's important in the whole show, that the government has to back what they consider are winners to go forward and for it to happen quicker. And obviously you've got to have a detailed plan for them to think of that, but it is a lot easier doing with their help, there's no doubt about it. It's also an interesting comment. When we started Balco, we only had 4 people that had to convince themselves that they were on the right track. And now, because we are more corporatised and we're dealing with corporates, it takes a lot longer. And I think sometimes the corporates, and I shouldn't really say this, they actually slow it down, and it's got to be a winner. Like we started Bowman's, and it was 4 years before it was profitable. Now, we just believed in it. Now, if we didn't do that, there would be no Bowman's. And so to go to the next step and think, day one, you're going to be profitable, you stand up for me, eh? Yep, right. Oh, geez. Right. Right. So anyhow, what we've done here, 600 hectares industrial land, road train, gazetted. We actually changed the road at Port Wakefield so we could get road trains to the site. Our shareholders do 80% of our business. We've just recently had a government grant of 800,000, spending about $3.5 million to expand to 40,000 square metres, a rail loop and terminal stuff at Bowman's. We also have just recently built some rail up in Broken Hill because we actually do, we bring down crystal sands from Broken Hill to Adelaide now to Berth 29 for export. So we do short haul rail is what we do. Broken Hill to Adelaide. Port Pirie, we pick up lead from there, Bowman's down to Adelaide to the port always, 25,000 to 30,000 TEUs. This is a side of where you can sort of see a peaky sort of blue area. That's what we're actually fixing up, and we're putting a double road train in. We measure like slot utilisation. That's absolutely critical. You've got to run a train at over 90% to make money. And it's also interesting with a train, you actually 15,000 containers you have to have before it's viable. We're rebranding to Balco Rail. every line. That's all we're interested in is railway lines and how we can get product there. Bowman's, Port Pirie, Broken Hill and Adelaide, but we see going around to Whyalla or down the south here and virtually running a milk train is the way forward. We focus on regions, agriculture resources, and we want the freight. We want to do a lot of freight and shipping lines into where we are. What are we going to do? We run our existing things. We're aiming to do national short haul. Archer Exploration, for instance, just announced the other day that they're going to deal with BIM to get magnesite from Lee Creek down to Anguston to if they can actually get the money to do it. We've also got a plan of how we want to use Lee Creek for the Cooper Basin. But one thing we are interested in is milk runs through the regions, and that's going to be very critical for us. So that's where we're up to there. Land here, we have 600 hectares, 100 kilometres from Adelaide. We've got water, electricity, road, train and intermodal there. It's linked to all the facilities except gas. We want it that we can capture interstate trains. It's 2 kilometres long, so we can. It could be a serious mid-north intermodal hub, and I'd like everyone here to try and support that and make it happen. Well, thank you about that. The other thing I was going to say is there's a couple of things. I think what we need to do is have a vision of what the future will look like for your community, your state and your country. You need to empower your family, the community, staff, suppliers and end users. You need to mix with positive people. You need to believe in what you're doing and never give up. Good luck with your businesses. Thank you.